back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Viewers, we are continuing our conversations this morning as we get ready, as us in Tobago get ready to say goodbye to our first Chief Secretary, Mr. Hochoy Charles. And continuing that conversation as we remember that life and remember the service that he gave to Tobago, we are being joined by two colleagues of his. And the first is Mr. Nathaniel, who was a former senator in the parliament. And there is also Mr. Cecil Caruth, who is a former assemblyman, Secretary of Education and Agriculture, and a few other things. Yes, so both of whom worked very closely with Mr. Charles, had a lot of interactions with Mr. Charles, especially in the political arena. Now, special good morning and welcome to you both.
Good morning, Kandace. Thank you for having us.
All right, so I'm going to start with Mr. Moore. Actually, I'll start with Mr. Moore first. You know, when you look back at Mr. Charles and the life that he lived, what stood out to you?
Well, the first thing I think, Mr. Charles was an action man. He was an action man, and he left Tobago, right? And I have no doubt in my mind that he did everything he could to enhance life and living in Tobago. That's the kind of person he was. I don't know if I must mention reservations. Perhaps he didn't do everything as he ought to have done it or to get the best results. But I believe he tried his best. Mm-hmm. All right? And I don't know if you could find anybody else who had the kind of devotion to Tobago. But if you do, it's quite well and in good company.
Certainly. And Mr. Caruth, you know, when you look back at Mr. Charles, what captures your attention?
What captures my attention was his absolute dedication to the issues he mastered to push Tobago's business forward. Mm-hmm. The governance of Tobago, the resources of Tobago. He did as much as he humanly could to do that. Mm.
You know, one of the things in the conversations that I've been having all week was Mr. Charles' ability to manage Tobago with very little resources. You were a part, Mr. Caruth, of that administration, and I'm guessing, Mr. Moore, I mean, you might be able to tell me just what it was like, you know, even in the different spheres, looking on at him, he's supporting him in private and so on, as to the work that he had been doing. What can you tell me about that time, about how he was able to manage Tobago and do it so well, do so much with so little?
Well, when you have a passion for something, it's like a powerful force that pushes you forward. Mm. In spite of what is likely to stop you from moving. He had that absolute belief in himself. Mm. To the extent that I would ask sometime when he's talking whether he is for real. I recall when Mr. Charles was in the assembly before we became chief secretary and all this type of thing. He used to come to Roxborough, up a hill where people lived, on a Sunday and a Saturday. At that time, I think he was in charge of works. And he will be building roads. He will have those trucks, the backhoe, men to come to work on a Saturday, on a Sunday, and on a public holiday, and Mr. Charles is in short pants. Mr. Moore, take over.
Yeah, you see, again, there are people who wanted the assembly to fail. I shouldn't say assembly then, But in Tobago, they wanted us to fail. When Mr. Robinson put forward the idea of internal self-government, and we had the group working together, right away we had opposition, right? So they were determined to see us fail, and we were determined to succeed. And I could say, well, Mr. Charles epitomized that attitude. And as Mr. Caruth said, we didn't have much fun there. In fact, let me tell you, in those days, no office, no organization, just elect the men and put them there. We had to find office and set about doing Tobago's business. So a lot of voluntary work was done, and I really think Mr. Caruth hinted on public holidays and weekends. There was Mr. Charles outside there with his group, building roads, repairing roads, and making terribly voluntary contribution to the people. So that is what he thought, that it was not all about money. We were starved for money, as we complain now. In those days, it was terrible.
And then, of course, as we're seeing on the screen right now, there's some images of the procession getting started from Belgrove's funeral home towards the Shore Park Cultural Complex. So, you know, throughout we'll be sneaking in while as we're continuing our conversation, and we'll be kind of bringing to you some of those images of what's happening there. So, but yes, you know, I mean, and as you're speaking about that passion and that drive that Mr. Charles had, how did that inspire both of you to be better politicians and better servants of the people?
Well, that's a very good question. To tell you the truth, all of us had a special interest in the development of Tobago. But all of us did not go out in the same way to capture the needs of Tobago and to let the people in Tobago know these are the needs we have. It meant hard work, very hard work. Each one of us as secretary worked very hard. Natty was not a secretary, but Natty was always there. Natty was, I calling him Natty, Mr. Moore.
No problem, man. Go ahead.
He was one of the passionate ones. We all shared the love for Tobago. It was boundless. Oh no, I have it. And I had it right through my school life. Because, I don't know why should I say this? I was always close to Mr. Robinson. He wasn't a loud fella. He wouldn't go in the rum shop and buy you drinks. You come home at him and he will entertain you. That's how he is. And he's always into the books.
Yes.
Always into something that will lift the image of Tobago. Do you know that Mr. Robinson, sorry to be talking about him now, but you can't leave him out.
Can't leave
that
him out.
Mr. Robinson had a keen interest in developing that international court that deals with men who did crime as politicians. So we, in a sense, you got to give me a chance to give you this, knead it in. We, in a sense, develop that kind of feeling for what leadership is about. And Hochoy was the real image. I feel in his mind, he thought about that image, and he will not leave a lesser image than Robinson would have left for Tobagonians who knew what had been going on.
it was almost as though Mr. Robinson took that fight on a national and international level, but Mr. Hochoy Charles made sure that he did the footwork here in Tobago.
Continue.
I'll tell you, the point is again, of course, we're talking about Hochoy and we are on Hochoy, so we highlight Hochoy. But the whole thing was a group effort.
Yeah.
Right? And some of the hardest workers and so on, perhaps you have met them, some of them have gone already.
Yes.
Off stage. But for example, in the case of Mr. Caruth, and in my case, we were employed as teachers, and Hochoy was devoted wholly to the task of administration and work in the assembly. So you'll hear more about him, you'll see more about him, and so on. But a group of us, we need a whole session. If your organization could develop a research section to get the history of Tobago, that'd be a good enterprise. That'd be a good thing you could do. You people who like to search and write, it'd be a good thing.
It's definitely a passion of mine, but
yeah. Well, you could pursue it. You learn a lot about those days. It was a real struggle, and the point is, we took it as an honor to work. You see, we worked, and Mr. Charles was very, very serious about it. Serious about it. I mean, there's nobody perfect. He did what he could.
No, in the later years, of course, he did not give up on that self-governance drive. So, of course, it started with Mr. Robinson, of course, and before that with A.P.T. James and Mr. Bigot and so on. But, you know...
Dr. Norton.
And all those people, yes. But Mr. Charles did not give up on it.
No.
And he continued even after active politics. What do you think, what do you remember about even working along with him during those last few years as he continued that drive forward for self-governance for Tobago?
You see, the point is that if you love Tobago and you're working for Tobago and you don't have an opening in politics, you may find an opening somewhere else. And I think that was his case. He I think predominantly thought that politics was an avenue, a quick avenue to realizing the goals he had for Tobago, right? But is that the matter of you in politics and politics in you? It's a matter also of whether you're a leader in politics, just a co-worker or a follower, right? And that's to his credit. When he recognized that perhaps he couldn't fit in because he wasn't placed in the position where he could go ahead in the leadership area, he worked where he could work. And then I thought he was a pretty good advisor. And let's say the present chief secretary has found out that, because at first, as he tell you, he was a little cautious about getting there, but he's discovering that the man has something that could be valuable to him and to the country. And so he's using, and the man was willing to work and give what he could for the country. And personally, I think he did a fairly good job at advising and keeping the spirit of the search for autonomy alive.
Yes.
That is a major contribution. Keeping it alive by what he could do when he could do it.
And Mr. Caruth, I mean, what would you like to add about that drive for self-governance even after coming out of active public politics?
Put it this way, it is in him. And he couldn't stay back and see things go vi. He wanted to see things go a certain way. Probably you might think he has a domineering kind of way, but if you have a passion and you can fit in, you will fit in. Because he devoted his time to the politics and used to do his garden too, the politics and the development of Tobago. He was there when they were building or extending or renovating or remodeling the airport. He was there when they were remodeling, extending Deepwater Harbor. He was there. He was there when the ships broke down or weren't operating. I have to be careful. When they weren't operating, and you couldn't keep taking excuses from Trinidad because Tobago is suffering. You can't drive from Scarborough to Toco. You could drive from Miaro to Tumaca,
Or even if you like.
or one of those places. You can do that. But it's not the same.
It's not the
We
same.
had two ways, by sea or by air, and that must function. And you will hear that people, I get passionate,
That's
you'll
fine.
hear that people would say that they can't get food to eat. But who caused us not to get food to eat? After Flora, agriculture became, you're too young to know this, that's 63. Agriculture became dead in Tobago, dead in Tobago. And where you getting the food from? Trinidad, but from Trinidad, from St. Vincent to Trinidad. So maybe we should have imported some of these people in St. Vincent to set the example to our people. Our people need to know that hard work is not bad. Just enjoy it.
Yes. And I mean, I want to make sure we touch on this as well, especially from you, Mr. Caruth, who was part of the assembly. When Mr. Charles went about, with the whole ring bang concept and so on, and wanted to promote Tobago, because, I mean, in my conversations with him over the years, he's explained that it was not, it was about branding Tobago, putting event tourism out there on the market and so on. A concept that people didn't quite understand in 1999, and he took a lot of beating for it. When you look back at that, and we're seeing that they're clearing the site at the Ring Bang Monument, you could finally actually see it once more and so on. But when you look back at that time, what can you tell us about his vision for Tobago in that space?
It had to be a vision that had to come to reality. This is what it is. And that ring bang thing was organized through Eddie Grant,
Yes.
because Eddie Grant was an international singer, performer, and so on. So you take in this Eddie Grant branding, well known in the English circles, in the American circle, and among promoters and stuff like that. That was a wonderful opportunity. But you see, those who did not understand the concept, and for different mileage, I don't want to use the correct word, different mileage, they make it look like an opportunistic, wild idea. But it was not a wild idea. You took it at the time when you should take it. That was the time when you're going to the millennium business. Right? So it was an opportune time to brand it. But you see, unfortunately, the whole of Tobago did not get
understand.
it. Didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I hope more and more, now that he's passed, more and more people will get on the bandwagon and get right in. It's too sad for us,
Yes. I mean, and I'm so young enough. I remember that time as well. There was so much noise in Tobago. Everywhere you go, you heard the criticisms about this.
Thank you.
But there were some unique things in that, there was supposed to be water, Tobago's own water branded with that same figure that we see on Signal Hill. There was supposed to be, T-shirts, caps. Mr. Moore, when you look back at when that idea was presented, what was going through your mind when you heard the vision that was being explained by Mr. Charles at that point in time?
No, I know it. I thought it was good, but as you said, I don't think the people's mind was prepared for that. I mentioned before, when we were selling, I would say, the idea of internal settlement for Tobago. See, we encountered the program, and we solved the problem, or we took the line of education. I remember I feel good. I'm always in the background. I am not the person who
Yes.
push myself in front of somebody in the background. But I remember I went to every community center, every gathering in the island, and we sold the idea. We had to sell it because we had opposition. It's the same thing with Charles and that concept. Now, we had a concept, and he could perhaps see from the beginning to where he wanted it to go. But a lot of people didn't see that. Some thought it was unnecessary, thought it was a waste. They had so many thoughts about it, right? And that was the problem. I believe the people were not educated enough to understand what was going on, and we didn't have the time. We didn't have the time to give the people the vision as we had it. That was one of the setback. And of course, the constant, you talk about the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back.
Yes.
And this build up over time of opposition and so on. The enemy was looking for the opportunity to break through. And that was one of the straws that gave them the opportunity to get the camel go. And we are hoping that, I'm hoping the fellas are not too emotional about it. And with all the intention to revive and so on, they'll be very cautious about how they go about it so that it doesn't work ill for us. But something must be done, actually, to memorialize the activities and the vision of Charles. And somebody must catch it to carry it on.
And what do you think it should look like?
Well, to me, it's a kind of intangible, I think that's the vision I have. It must be part of our education system, the formal education, that is in the school, and that is where we did a pretty bad job. We in Tobago here had the opportunity to include in our education system, to include responsible for education, the idea of managing the curriculum. And I think we fail a little bit with that. Or history, or economic studies and so on should be around the activities that we have in Tobago to move forward. And I don't think the education system did function well enough for us in that respect. And that is one of the things that happened, not only the ring bang and other stuff, but the drive now to autonomy. I think we ought to engage more of a media for that. I'm not whipping anybody really.
Since we're talking about ring bang and selling the island, I don't know if many people know this. In the early 60s, when a Jamaican was leaving Jamaica to go anywhere in the world, Edward Seaga, who was the Prime Minister of Jamaica and was basically a businessman, used to make sure at the airport, every departure or departee who was going anywhere must carry a tape of the reggae thing and selling Bob Marley. I don't know if we know it. Bob Marley's royalty, at least in 1 year that I read, was in excess of 10 million. That's after he's dead and gone. In excess of $10 million, because reggae has taken over the whole world.
And
Why?
was that part of the inspiration for Mr. Charles for that ring bang initiative?
Well, it could have been. I don't know. I never talk about the details.
Yeah, but
to him.
Things did happen very fast there, and there was not much time.
But Edward Seaga did that sort of thing. And we now have to have something, capture our culture, our education, and sell it out there. And so people will focus on us. And if they're focusing on us, they'll have to come and see who these people are. We're not in war. We're trying to sell you a nice product. And that is what we have to do. Tobago is a beautiful place, you know. Beautiful woman too, you know. We love him.
No, it's the truth.
We both have been speechless this morning. But as we're getting ready to wrap things up, what is one thing that you both would like to leave with the people of Tobago as we get ready to say goodbye to Mr. Charles? And as you can see, his body is just arriving with a procession at the Shore Park complex there. They're just getting in there. So I'm going to start with Mr. Caruth and then Mr. Moore. So Mr. Caruth, what is one thing you would like to leave with Tobago?
I would like to leave the fact that while we are studying to get degrees and to fill different positions in Tobago or anywhere in the world, work very hard to promote Tobago. Have a passion for what you're doing, especially if you are a teacher. And if you see a child is going the wrong way, bring him or her back. It might be a trying time to do that, but you must take that as part of your duty. There's a thing about teaching by infusion. In other words, you're teaching algebra, but yet you're talking about the history of Tobago.
Yes.
You're talking about the principal characters who were in Tobago and people look forward to. And even the jokey ones, like John Stewart. You know about John Stewart. All these jokey people, you bring them into play. Tobago had Sandy. What Sandy was again? Sandy.
The slave Sandy. The slave Sandy that swam to Trinidad.
The Sandy who fought against slavery.
Yes. He led one of the riots and then escaped.
That's right. So you need to bring that in, but you're not stirring up revolution. You're stirring up an evolution. In other words, embrace what you have and sell it as a good product. Thank you.
And Mr. Moore.
Yeah, you see, we are finite. We could only operate within a certain time. We have finite resources. We could only spend or have so much at our disposal to do what we have to do. So it's important that we manage time and we manage the resource. So my hope is that people step in now and fill the void left, because Charles has gone. He has gone physically forever, but mentally, his memory will be there. And there'll be something there to still enthuse the zeal to go forward. And so I'm hoping that some of us will come, the younger ones, to fill the void left by Charles and continue the work for Tobago and improve the resources we have at Tobago, so that our drive, say, mainly now for autonomy, could continue to its conclusion. And we are hoping that somehow there's a change of mind in the central government, to view what we're doing in Tobago here as part of national development as well, so that they'll be willing to assist as we go on and not treat us so that there'll be enmity between us. We must have cooperation to go on to develop Tobago and to develop the country.
Mr. Moore, Mr. Caruth, I want to thank you both for being on with us this morning and for sharing those wonderful memories of Mr. Charles. Certainly invaluable, and we certainly treasure it. So thank you again. And well, viewers, that's how we're going to wrap the morning program, well, for GMT this morning. It was certainly a pleasure being here with you, but of course, as the funeral progresses, the body just arrived at the Shore Park Cultural Complex. Tobago Updates will continue to bring you live coverage all day of the funeral and the homegoing service for our first Chief Secretary, Mr. Hochoy Charles. So bye for now.
One